3, 2, 1. Hello everybody, Steven here from Cardboard Coalition, and today we thought we would bring you a how to play of Set a Watch Swords of the Coin. I have to keep doing that one, Swords of the Coin, by Stone Manor Games. All right, this is going to be a how to play of Set a Watch Swords of the Coin, the newest version, expansion. It's a play alone expansion of Set a Watch. So if you're wondering how to set up and play Set a Watch, the original version, this is the exact same way. There's some extra things going on here, and I'll explain those to you as we go through. So as you noticed, it's not fully set up. I have some cards kind of sitting around so I can try to explain to you guys how some of this works, because it can get a little, not complicated, but the rule book can use a little tweaking, but that just comes from my background as a technical writer, or teaching technical writing, to be honest. There's some tweaks that they can do, but overall it's understandable. It just takes some time, and I figured I would walk you guys through it to show you the full setup. So I will keep referring back to the rule book to make sure I'm kind of doing things correctly. So let's begin. First, we want to set up the board. So this is the board, and one of the cool things about this is also the box the game comes in, but it gives you some locations, it gives you the camp, things like that. You also set out the camp tokens. Anytime a hero goes to the camp, they get a camp token. And it's gonna be hard for you guys to see, but on one side there's a 1 in the middle of the tent, and on the other side there's a 2 times, 1 times and 2 times. So you go ahead and set these out, and this is to mark when the heroes have gone to camp. Each hero can only go to camp twice in a game. All right, so now we've set up the board, we've set up the hero tokens, then we go ahead and have people pick their heroes. The deluxe version comes with 6 heroes because you're getting the Kickstarter stuff. The base version, I believe, only comes with 4, but I could be wrong on that. So I did put out the 4 that I think are the base hero. I'm 100%, these are the base 4 heroes. I don't know if the other 2 normally come with it. I know they come with the deluxe version, which we have here. So what you do is each person picks their character. They go ahead and get the matching die, which it'll show right here. You can see the shape of the die. The color also goes with, kind of like the older version, what kind of die it would be. The original version only has, and I know I'm going to screw this up, I believe this is an 8-sided, a 6D and an 8D. This one has a 12D and a 4D. And I believe there's another one, but we won't get into it. It's for one of the other characters. They have some extra different dice. Is it a 10D? I don't know. I know I'm letting you guys down. But anyways, each person grabs their character. You go ahead and get the corresponding dice for the character. Each character has 3 dice. You also get these cards right here, which are their ability cards. And it says to shuffle them up. You can see the ability on the front and back. It's the exact same ability. This just means it's exhausted. So you go ahead and shuffle those up. You're supposed to blindly do this in a sense, and you randomly, and you put down 2 cards after you've shuffled them, and then you put down a 3rd one face down, which means that one's exhausted. You take your extra ability cards and you go ahead and set them right here, your special ability cards. You go ahead and set them right there. It's because later on there are actions you can do to change out abilities. There are also things that you can do to flip over an exhausted ability card. So now that we have the heroes set up, I'm going to jump back to this. I'm pretty sure it's the unhollowed. Bum, ba, bum. Yep, prepare the unhollowed deck. All right, let's go ahead and set this down. Prepare the unhollowed deck. So the unhollowed cards have this symbol right here, which is a skull and a circle. These are all unhollowed cards, right? Unhollowed cards. So what you do is you take those, you give them a good shuffle. There you go. And you take one off the top and you go ahead and you put that over here, which is the Horde deck. This comes into play at the end of the game. These are all the monsters you're gonna have to face at the end of the game. Then you count off 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those 7 get set down, face down, anywhere you want. I have this set up to best show you. Usually I kind of put them closer to the camp. And then the rest of the unhollowed cards you just set them aside. So you go ahead and put those, and we'll put those out of camera. All right, so now we have the unhollowed deck set up. Now it's time to set up the creature deck. Now the creature deck, there's some things you got to do really quick, or they tell you to do. So right off the bat, you go ahead and flip through here, and we're looking for, I can't think of it off the top of my head. I got to see the card, Acolytes. So it tells you to take 2 Acolytes out of the deck. It's because the Acolytes do certain things that cause you problems. And I think, well, those are 2 of the same. Can I find another Acolyte while I'm doing this live? There we go. All right, or recording this live, however you want to look at it. And I forgot, this is a special card. It goes with this player. It's something new to this version. We'll just go ahead and set it there. So you also would give any of the players any special things you have. There's an Artificer, which I don't have out, and he comes with a certain staff that gets set down. The Witch has a Familiar. So back up, I put the Familiar out there. All right, so back to the creature deck. It tells you to pull out 2 Acolytes, right? You pull those out. You also pull out all of the summoning cards. So the summoning cards have 0, and they all have the same picture, and it's of the inside of a building or kind of a creepy area. And this is how you make the game more difficult. The game's already difficult. So it tells you 1 is easy, 2 is moderate, 3, I don't remember what goes on after that, but as you can tell, it gets harder as it goes. And some of them are slightly different if I remember right. These ones aren't, and the regular ones, there's some different things that go on. So we're going to go ahead and take 2 to make it normal, and we're going to set those 2 aside. The rest of the summoning cards go over here. And we are still working on the creature deck, right? The rest of the summoning cards are out of the game. So then, once you have pulled 2 Acolytes, and it doesn't matter, it could be any kind, and you've pulled 2 summoning cards, or how many ever summoning cards you want to use to make the game more and more difficult. The more the summoning cards, the more difficult. Then you go ahead. It says to give the deck a shuffle. It kind of says shuffle twice, but I've given this deck a pretty good shuffle. You count 28 cards off the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. All right, so now we have our 28 creature cards. You go ahead and take these, and you set them off to the side. You don't need the rest of the creature cards. Now, with these creature cards, it says go ahead and put the 2 Acolytes on top and then shuffle it up again. There's lots of shuffling, and I think this is to set up some kind of rhythm to the game. You know you're going to get some unhollowed, and the summoning cards bring unhollowed into the game. So, and unhollowed tend to be a little bit more difficult. They have more effects that are a little difficult. So you go ahead and shuffle those 28 cards up. And then because we chose 2 summoning cards, you want to divide your deck as evenly as possible to the number of summoning cards you have. So if we have 2, we want 2 stacks. If we have 3, we want 3 stacks, 4 stacks, so on and so forth, right? So, and the other thing that it says is the smallest stack goes at the bottom, but I'll go over that one more time. So we have 2, we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we want 2 stacks of 14. Because we have 2 summons cards. We go ahead and put those on top of both stacks. We shuffle them up. Give them a good shuffle. I don't know why I'm trying to shuffle them really good like I'm about to play right now. And I'll just be honest, two of these would probably destroy me. I'm having a hard time by myself beating it with 1. But all right, so we shuffled it up. And then you put them together. This is where if you would have an uneven, so one of the decks has 1 less or something like that, you put the smallest on the bottom and the largest on top. And I think that gives you more time before you come across a summoning. So now you have your creature deck set up. You have your unhollowed deck, your creature deck set up. The next thing that we want to go ahead and do is we want to prepare the map deck. And as you see, I have that kind of spread out over here too, because there's some things you want to do. So these are your map cards. You see on the back, it gives you some runes, which are some more things you can do in the camp. So you have a couple types. So let's go ahead and set them out here. Well, we'll set them here so it's a little bit closer for you guys to see. So these are final locations, and they're designated also by a little yellow designation in the side, and it shows a castle, right? This game, this expansion play alone expansion. This version has 2 final destinations. So it says separate those out, and the respite cards. So they also have a symbol, and it looks similar to the token here. It's just a tent. So you go ahead and you take those, make sure you have all those separated. I usually do all the separating at the end of a game. It just makes it easier for me. It depends if it's a party night and we're trying to go fast. Sometimes I don't. But then you have all these that have no, oops, I should go the other way. They have no designation. So these are your map deck. I want to let's make sure it's map deck. So I'm glancing back over here to make sure I got the words right. It's map deck. Look at me go. All right, I have played this a few times, but I'm always the type I'd rather make sure I'm giving you guys proper information so you can do it right. I don't know why I shuffled these. That's just weird. So the game is played through a series of 9 rounds. So there's 9 rounds. There's 8 rounds in the final destination, so there's 9 rounds. So what you do here is you go ahead and you take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 destination cards, and you shuffle them up. Man, that's why they tell you to shuffle them. Woo! And I'm throwing them. Enjoyable, right? Stick your fingers, not. All right, so you go ahead and you take 8 map or destination cards, right, to make the map deck. And then they say you could pick or you blindly, I tend to just blindly pick one of the final destinations. You slip it on the bottom. You go ahead and set all those here. This final destination you're not using, go ahead and take that out of the game. Don't need it anymore. Then you take all your respite cards and what's left over of your map deck, your destination cards, because we're making the map deck really. This is the map deck right here. So now what we're doing is we're shuffling the respite and all the other location cards together, and this becomes your unused locations, all right? And there's a thing in the box, I'm pretty sure you guys can see, unused locations. We go ahead and set that there. Now that we've got those done, we got just a couple more things to do, and we're ready to rumble. All right. So it says to light the fire at this point. You can kind of do this at another point. So when you light the fire, you take your first location deck, you go ahead and put it down, and you don't pay attention to the fire, the lowering of the fire. I can't remember the name they use. But you will pay attention to what that space does and how many creatures you need when the watch phase starts. So let's go ahead and go like this so I can show you guys and we can read over these cards. So this is how the fire is affected. It could be positive or negative. In this case, it's -2, but because we're just starting the game, right, we're just lighting the fire, we don't follow that. Over here, you have how many creatures are going to come out in a line is 7. Then you have the name of this area. So what do we have here? This is bad for me. Tribal lands, trying to read with dyslexia and upside down. Tribal lands, and then it has what happens in that area, the special ability, the special character of that area. So in this one, it says each time an adventurer defeats a goblin, they may re-roll all of their unspent dice. That's pretty good. Sometimes these things hinder, sometimes they help, and sometimes it depends. All right, so we've lit the fire. Now we got a couple more things to do, and then we're ready to rock. All right, I want to make sure I do it right. If it's the merchant or the money, it's the merchant first. That's interesting. The merchant and the market. So the merchant first. So if you notice right here, there's little coins in these spots. This means you take one coin and you put it on the one side. There's a 3 on the back, and that's for count. And you go ahead and set it in that spot. And I'm offsetting them just so I can talk about what these spots are too. So you have those 3 there, you have one right here, and I'm offsetting it really bad because I want to be able to point to that, and then you have one that goes down here. All right, so all your extra coins, you go ahead and you just pick a spot, you do a pile of them, I don't know why I picked them all back up, and you make a pile of coins. After that, we go ahead and we set up the, I always want to call this whole thing the merchant, but it's called the market. So the coins they call the merchant, there's the merchant right there. This is dual-sided, you could pick what merchant you want to look at. And then you have the market, which what you do is you take this deck, you shuffle it up, right? And I already set this up because there's nothing special about it. You just take the deck, shuffle it up, and you set 3 cards down in the market. And you have little things to show you that there's cards in the market. You also have those spots on this card to let you know. All right, so you put your 3 cards in your market. Now, everything's ready to go. The game is all set up. Now what happens is you go through, I want to say it's 3 phases, but now off the top of my head, I'm getting nervous. Okay, I'm right, 3 phases. It's not like I don't do this in a way for a living, not teaching games, but so you have 3 phases. Your first phase is your camp phase. And what happens in your camp phase is you pick a player that goes to camp, right? And I would say, they say at the end that you flip the next place card. I would say at the camp phase you can flip the next card over, but we'll do it the way they say it. So you pick a player to go to camp, but before you pick that player, everyone has to roll their dice, which is really weird because it's not in a phase. So I just think in my head, beginning a camp phase, everyone rolls their dice. So everyone takes those 3 dice they have and they roll them, and they put the results down right here. And that's nice because the witch's results are going to help us. So you roll everybody's dice, you see what numbers they're going to get, and these are the results that you're working with. All right. And the reason I don't have them on the card or anywhere else is because I want to make a better kind of visual for you guys. All right, so now we've rolled everybody's dice, and as a group, we decide who goes to the camp. So in this instance, we're going to pick the witch. But I will let you guys later on read, if you buy the game, read into or look up the different aspects of each of the heroes. But the witch can do a lot of damage with small numbered dice. Small numbers, she can still do a lot of good for the team. But because she has 3 of a kind, it'll help me show you guys something. So let's go ahead and say that the witch is going to go to the camp. So for the camp phase, we go ahead and we take the witch and we send her in the camp. Let me jump through this so I can go ahead and make sure I say everything correctly, because my name is Steven. All right, so camp phase. So we have a handful of things that we can do in the camp phase. So I'm just going to follow the book, which doesn't follow in order what's on here, but first we have chop wood. So what the witch can do, whoever's in camp can chop wood. And you have 1 space, you have 3 spaces here. You can assign 1 die. If you assign 1 die here, it moves the fire up 2 spaces. Why do you want the fire higher? It lets you see further in the line of monsters that come out. You can think of the fire getting bigger and bigger, and you can see what's out there. So she could chop wood. The next thing that she can do is she can scout ahead. So she can go over here and scout ahead. Now, if she scouts ahead, what she gets to do is she gets to look at the top 2 cards, or whoever, I'm saying she because we're sending the witch in there. The person in camp gets to look at the top 2 cards of the monster deck, right? Flip them over, and she can discuss this with everybody and decide if she wants to either put them back on the top, put them on the bottom, or put some combination of one on the top. And we're going to put this pesky dragon way down here on the bottom, right? That's what Scout does. The other thing that, and we'll talk about the coins here in a second. The other thing that the person can do in the camp is they can check the map. So check the map. You can come over here and check the map. The thing with checking the map, if you notice here, you have to have a 4 or more. So she doesn't have a 4 yet, but let's say she had a 4. You have to have a 4 or higher to check the map. What you do when you check the map is you go ahead and take the top location card, and you take the top unused location card. Oop, now I'm just taking more time. The top unused location card, and you compare the 2. And you could share this information too. So you look at them and you decide which one goes back to the top of the location deck, the camp deck, and which goes to the bottom of the unused location. So in this example, this came from the map deck, right over here. And it has -2 on the fire, 7 cards. This one has 0 and 7 cards, but you also see it's a respite. You might also want to look at the text of what it does in that area. So I'm going to say I want to take this respite that I got from here. I'm going to set that at the top of our map deck. It means we're going to go there next, and I'm going to take this card and go ahead and throw it at the bottom of the unused locations deck. All right, so that's what you do in the map. You look at one from each of these stacks. You decide which one you want to put on the top of the map, and then the other one goes to the bottom of the unused location. So our next thing that we are going to look at is heal. As I told you, it doesn't follow directly how it shows on the board. So we have heal. Let's go ahead and put her back to 2 because that's going to help out later. You go to heal. So for heal, you also have a number there, and it's a 6. So you can't heal unless you have a 6 or higher. The witch cannot heal, right? To go here, you would have to have a 6 or higher. And what healing does, it means that you can flip over one of your spent, exhausted item cards. Or not item cards, special ability cards. I don't want to get you guys confused. Special ability cards. But the other thing is, the player who goes to the camp, now hopefully this doesn't confuse you guys, as soon as the player goes to the camp, they automatically get to heal one of their item cards. So in this scenario, the witch wouldn't even have to heal. But if she wanted to, she could do the heal action. She's also allowed to heal one of the other players, right, on the board. So if she had a 6, but she doesn't have a 6, she can't do that. All right, and she's already healed, so she doesn't have to worry about it. Now, the other thing that goes on in the camp is you have runes on top of these cards. And you can do these actions on the runes. And I know it's going to be really hard to see, so I'm just going to put it up there for a second. I'm going to bring it down so I can read. So you can vanquish, you can bolster, or you can seal. They're not the easiest to see on here, I'll admit to that. So you can vanquish, you can bolster, or you can seal. How you use the runes is you have to have matching numbers. And to use the runes, you have to have at least 2. Even to begin with, if you want to use runes, you have to have at least 2 matching numbers. And so what you do is you go ahead and put 2 of those on there to mark that those are the camp actions that you want to do. And then you go ahead and pick 2 actions. And you could pick any 2 on here that you want to do, but you have to have at least 2 of the same numbers. And then if you have 3 of the same numbers, you can do all 3 rune actions. You can do one multiple times, you can do, in this case, one twice and the other one once, whatever you want, but you have 3 runes there. So let's go ahead and go through the rune actions. The first rune action is seal, right? So what you would do is you would search the graveyard, which we don't have yet. The graveyard is, after you kill the monsters, they go to a graveyard. You can search the graveyard and take any unhallowed, right, of your choosing, and you can move it to the bottom of the unhallowed deck. So let's, for argument's sake right now, say that we had a graveyard already. We've gone through this a couple times, and we have an unhallowed hiding in there, right? So we can, if we use the, I want to make sure I do the right thing for you guys. If we use the seal, we can go ahead and flip through this deck, and we're like, I don't want to deal with this unhallowed, because if this deck runs out, you just reshuffle this, you take the unhallowed, and you throw it under the unhallowed deck. They're not out of the game, but they're there for you to get rid of. The next thing that you can do with the runes is you can vanquish, right? Take the top card of the Horde deck and remove it from the game. So you could go ahead, if you have 2, you can vanquish this card. And we know this one's already unhallowed because we set it up. You can vanquish it. That means it goes out of the game. It's no longer in the Horde. The reason you want to keep the Horde small is on your last card, you're going to have to fight everything here and the Horde. It's a mess. It's a mess. Trust me, guys, it's a mess. So if you vanquish, you can go ahead and get rid of one of the top card from the Horde deck. There's multiple cards here. You can only take the top one, right? And then the last thing is Bolster. So what that means is if you decide to do Bolster, each person who's on watch, so this person's in camp, these people are on watch. If you decide to bolster, what they get to do is they can pick how many dice they want and they can re-roll the die. And that went worse for me, right? So there's a 2 here. We're like, oh, we know we can get higher than that. There's an 11, right? And over here, you're bolstering them. So you got that 1, now it's a 2. Fair mix. The reason I didn't do the other ones is because they were fairly high, worth keeping. So that's what Bolster does. That's the 3rd rune that you can do here. So you can seal, you can get rid of, in a sense, you can take a unhallowed from the graveyard and put it at the bottom of the unhallowed deck. You can vanquish, which is taking the top card of the Horde deck and just getting rid of it so you don't have to deal with the top card of the Horde deck. Or you can bolster, allowing the people on watch to try to bolster the points that they have. Now there's one more thing that you can do when you're here in the camp. and then we'll go over the coins and how they work. So each of the heroes have an ability across the bottom. That's a camp-specific ability, and it lets you know with the little mark next to it. So you can also spend a die to do camp-specific abilities. I don't think I have, I think it's, no, not the hunter. It was in the original game, so never mind. There's an ability that in the original game that lets you heal someone outside and yourself. But what you do is you just take a die and you put it there, and you can do whatever the ability says. And each adventurer, each character, each hero has their own ability that they can do in camp. So you just go ahead and you would take one of your die and you would spend it there. And let's say we chopped 2 wood over here, right? And that is how you spend your dice in the camp. So once the person who's in camp is done, the camp phase is over. Then what you do is you go to the watch phase. Stop. After the camp is over, then you go to the merchant phase. Bad Steven, right? And the merchant phase allows you to spend money to buy items. And you might be saying, wait a minute, Steven, how do we get money? How you get money is by going to these spaces where there are coins. So let's say you go here, you get this first coin. It's in that first space, right? It's normally right here. It's how you're supposed to mark it. You put this here, you get a coin. Go ahead and put that to the merchant. And then let's say they scouted ahead, so they get to go right here and they get a coin. That goes to the merchant. And let's see, we don't have enough coins, but we'll just leave it at that. They went there and they went with their special ability. That was their camp setup that they decided to do. It's how they decide to spend their dice in the camp. So with this, it allows you to bump 2. We can set that up for later to look at. So we have 2 coins over here. Now, 2 coins can't buy any of these that are right here. So you got 4, 5, and 4. You can't buy any of those, but we have some coins. So let's just say we've jumped ahead a little bit. We've gone a couple rounds. We have 4 coins that we've collected up here. Now, after the watch phase, so watch phase is done. They've decided what they're going to do. Oh, we also forgot this. They also get a token for going to the watch. Whenever someone goes to camp, they get a token, right? And you put it on the one side. So now what happens after the watch phase is you go to the merchant phase and and this is a group pull of coins, and you go ahead and you buy items, right? And you have different kind of items that do different things. You have items that are passive, like this one, which means they happen at all times. You have items that say discard, like this one, right? And then there is one other item, which I don't have here. Let's see if the first one shows it, and it doesn't. It doesn't matter. I'm not really, it's hard for you guys to see. There's an activate. So in this bottom area on these cards, we'll go ahead and go over these cards now. It gives you a picture of what it is. It tells you what the item is, the name of the item. It tells you what the item does, and that's the cost. But right before it tells you what the item does, it says either passive, active, or discard. If it's active, that means you have to spend one of your die on that item. So this isn't an active one, but let's say for argument, this is an active one. If I want to use that item because this person has it, I have to spend a die by putting a die on that card to use that item, right? So that is an active item. The other ones are passive. Passive means if you have, like this is a passive, that stays there and it works all the time. That the text there is always working. It's a passive text. Then you have discard. So if you had like this one is chopping wood, if I remember right, this bumps the fire. Yeah, it bumps the fire up a lot. If the witch had that, she can go ahead and discard it and then bump the fire up 5 more spaces. So with the merchant, you can go ahead and decide to buy a card and then assign it to any person, either at the camp or on watch, right? Then the next thing you do with the merchant phase, I want to make sure I'm saying these things right for you guys. The next thing you do with the merchant phase is you go ahead and you put out coins. I believe that is the thing. You refresh the market. No, first you refresh the market, then you put out coins. So market phase, you buy anything you want, assign it to who you want it to. Next, you refresh the market. So if you do not buy anything from the market, you go ahead and take one card and you put it over one of the cards in the market. So this one's cheaper, but it does less, right? So we have to pick one and we just go ahead and put it over there. If you've bought nothing from the market, one card goes on top of the market. Now, if you've bought a couple things because you're a rich adventurer, so let's go ahead and say these were bought at the market, you go ahead and you fill in any used spaces, right? You go ahead and fill them in. So if you buy nothing from the market, you have to take a card and cover something. And then if you buy a couple things from the market, you go ahead and fill the market. Now, if there's a market and it has stuff like this, right? A card on top of a card, you can buy both the cards, but first you have to buy the topmost card in the market. All right, so once you refresh the market, which involves if you bought nothing covering a card or replacing cards that are there, then what you do is you go ahead and replace the coins in the camp. How that works is you put a coin down at any spot that shows a coin, right? There's a coin there, there's a coin there, there's a coin there. And then if there are dice there, you don't put any coins down. So now these spots have 2 coins there. And that is the market phase. You buy things and pass them out, right? The next thing you do is you refresh the market by either placing a card if you've bought nothing or by filling in empty spots. Then you put the coins down. And that is the market phase. And I realized, let me step back and explain something really quick because I did a very bad thing. All right. So another thing that you can do on watch, you guys might have caught it as you watch it, is this equip. What equip means is you can take any of your cards and your special abilities and you can swap them out. So you have 2 extra special abilities. Everybody comes with 5. They put down 3, 2 face up, 1 face down, and then you switch them. Now, how this works is if you decide to switch out an active ability or non-exhausted ability, you can just go ahead and equip a different ability, right? But if the ability that you're trying to equip is already exhausted, you have to go ahead and put the new ability that you switched out for, you have to put that down exhausted. So that is the camp phase, right? The last thing that I remember about camp phase. So after camp, first comes camp phase. Well, first you roll your dice, then comes camp phase, then comes market phase. And market phase and these coins are what's new in this game. One of the new things. There are some different things that go on with the heroes that are new and tweaked a little bit, which makes it fun and exciting. But this phase is a whole new from the market. So once the camp phase is over, market phase is over, then it becomes the watch phase. In the watch phase, you want to go ahead and look at what the number of cards is that are coming out, the number of monsters, which tells you in the upper, I got to look at the upper right corner of the card, of your camp card, your map card. So this one says 7. So what we do is we go ahead and we take from the creature deck 7 cards and we go ahead and put them down. Now, I will take a moment now to say this is something extra that I bought. It's fun. In the review, I'll talk about it a little bit, but I thought it would be cool to kind of get it to place cards out. You don't have to. It might save some space if you do cards left to right or something like that to save space, but I kind of think it's fun. I feel like they're marching up on you. All right, so you go ahead and you put down your 7 cards. Now, the fire, the reason you want this fire, like I said, is because you spread out light and you can see further down this line. And that is designated by these skulls right here. Let's go ahead and move these coins over here. All right, so this lets you see 1 card, this lets you see 2, this lets you see 3. The fire throughout play can go up and down the whole time. You can't go higher than 15 on the fire, and you can never go lower, you can never go to 0. If you go to 0, one of the players in the party has to decide to exhaust one of their cards, right? So if this went to 0, someone would have to exhaust one of their cards to bump this back up to 2. The fire is never allowed to go to 0, right? If you die, I think it'll go to 0. But if it ever goes to 0, you spend 2 and you go up. So let's go ahead and set the fire here. In this instance, the fire is at a 9. 7 is where the 2 skulls, the 2 skull is, which allows you to see 2 creatures. And of course, you start the game at 7. And so what this means is we get to see the first 2 creatures in the lineup. So there's the first one. Oh no, we got Zombie Horde. And with Zombie Horde, you have some special text, and it's ongoing. So let's go ahead and look at how we read this card. On the upper left side is damage. This means if this, at the end of the watch, if you have no more actions, they're still monsters, this card ends up going to the Horde, you lose that much damage. And as a group, you decide who takes the damage. This is how many points it takes to kill the monster, the creature. You can do those points by direct attack, which are the dice, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, or you could do some of your abilities that you have to attack them. You have the picture, you have the name, this is zombie hordes, and then you have the text of what these do. This is an ongoing effect. There is a reveal effect, there is an ongoing effect, there is first in line, I believe is what it's called, effect, and I think there's one when they leave to the Horde, but I could be wrong on that. But it'll tell you when you can use this, just like the item card. So this one says ongoing. And so the zombie horde's health is increased by the creature's base at the top of the graveyard. So what that means is he's 7 plus 5, which makes this zombie horde 12. It's crazy zombie horde. All right. Well, remember, we can reveal 2 cards. So we go ahead and reveal the next card. And this is the beginning of the watch phase. So we have a vampire, right? And it says reveal. So that means as soon as this card's revealed, this happens. And so it says revealed, steal the highest available spent die and add its value to the vampire. Right now, we haven't spent any die, and this act does say spent die. There's one I think just takes the highest value, which kept beating me up. But so this means when it was revealed, then we got to go ahead and do that. We have no spent die. You don't count the watch or the camp. You count only the people on the watch. So we have no spent die. So he gets nothing. So now we know the first 2 creatures. Now, there is no order in how we have to attack them. Unless otherwise stated, we are allowed to combine dice with different adventurers to try to take them out. We're allowed to combine the special abilities, or with the witch. I mean, she's in camp, but if she was out here on the line, she could use her familiar. But these 3 can do any combination of direct attack, which is dice, or their special ability attacks to go ahead and take out these zombies. Now, there's some things to point out really quick. This 2-blade means that they can only fight the first monster in line, at least just normally. Now, they might have abilities that allow them to jump further, but their normal attack is, you can think of it as a melee. And if you see the bow and arrow, this means ranged. Their normal attack can shoot up to 2 spaces. They can get this monster without hitting this monster, as long as this monster does not stop them from doing that. And these monster cards really switch a lot of this up. So these 2 characters are ranged. She's not on watch. But our hunter can actually go after the vampire. To help the hunter, you would have to have range 2, so he'd have to do the vampire by himself. So he'd have to spend 4 or use one of his special abilities. Now, how do you use a special ability? There's 2 ways. You can spend a die. So you can take a die and go ahead and set it on that card and use that special ability. The other way to use a special ability is to go ahead and exhaust it. But remember, exhausting your abilities is kind of like your health in a sense. So you can exhaust it. And in one watch phase, you can do both. You can exhaust an ability and you can place a die on the ability, allowing you to use that ability twice. So per round, you can use an ability twice. No more than that, either by assigning a die or exhausting it. Now, you can exhaust it twice, and you can't assign 2 die to it, but you could use that ability by 1, assigning a die, and then exhausting it, if you so choose. So that's how you use abilities. If one of the heroes goes ahead and has exhausted either by using them or by things that happen with the cards, if they've exhausted all their abilities, they cannot fight in the next watch. It's probably wise to send them to camp, but if you have 2 people who have spent all their abilities, it's kind of hard. A person on watch who has no abilities cannot fight, even with their dice rolled. And they can't use their dice in the camp or anything. They're just dead in the water in a sense. They're dead weight out there. Now, How you lose abilities is one by, or you expend them, right? So you go ahead and flip them over and decide, hey, I'm going to use that ability. The other way is there's special things that the cards tell you that make heroes lose ability, or as if you run out, let's say all these guys have spent, and this would be really bad at the beginning if this happened, they've spent all their actions. You have 3 actions. Some of these will be passive actions that you can do too, but you basically have 3 actions, each hero. Once that happens, any remaining monsters here slide off into the Horde until the line's done. So let's say this happens, he slides off, that means we have to exhaust an ability. Then these move up, and of course 2 space we flip over, right? And you keep doing this, and then he slides off. That means we have to lose another ability. Oh, these people don't have their 1 ability. That's my bad. They don't have their 1 ability already gone. So they move off. You have to exhaust a card. Someone on watch has to exhaust the card. And obviously it keeps going. So now right here we have a monster, and it just helps, or a creature. I keep calling a monster so I can show you guys. 2. So you would lose 2. You would exhaust 2. Well, they can't because they're on watch. You would exhaust 2 abilities. All right. So that's how the fighting goes. You can fight together unless the card says you can't. Depending on your range, if you're 1 in line or 2 out, that's where you can attack. And you can use your special abilities to attack monsters. Now, how you win the game is you get through all these cards. All these cards are done. You get this last card and you kill all the monsters. Well, not necessarily kill them. We'll talk about that in a minute. You get through the whole line, and at least one, so we're going to flip all these over just to show, at least one of the people on watch still has an active ability. In the last phase we'll talk about here in a second, you get to use all of your heroes. So to win, you have to be able to get to the end and have at least one player with an unexhausted ability, right? That means you win. You lose if all of the exhausted heroes have lost their abilities. Now, one of the things I will say, it sounds pretty scary, and it kind of is, but in the end phase, what happens, let's go ahead and clean these cards up. Let's say we've gone through a couple phases, and now we've gotten to the end round. We've gotten to that final phase, right? And on this card, it tells us that we have to reduce that by 2, and then we have 9 creatures. 9 creatures get up on that board, and they go and they're ready to attack us. But the problem is, it's not just 9 creatures. So what we'd end up doing is we put 9 cards down. So we have 1, 2, right, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And how I do this one is I just go ahead and put one underneath. If you're stacking them, it really doesn't matter. 9. So I know it goes this one, then that one. And then you also have all the cards that happen to make it to the Horde, because this is the final round. It's actually pretty good. We only have 3. And so they go here. So to get through this, you have to be able to defeat all these monsters and still have one hero with a ability card active. Now, one of the things that goes on is in the final phase, when you get to the final destination, there is no camp phase. No one goes to camp. All 4 of your heroes are on watch to fight everybody who's coming through. So once you flip this card, you don't get to do camp phase. It's going straight. You can do merchant, but you go to the watch phase, right? Merchant, then watch, and then you fight monsters. As I said, how you win is by having at least one hero. So let's go ahead and say she's on watch, right? And she's had to exhaust everything. They're getting their butts kicked, but the hunter still has one of their abilities that isn't exhausted. And all these are gone. That means you win the game. Now, you can lose too, and how you lose the game is close, but one of them is that you have no heroes. So if this line's still going, let's say we've gotten through a handful of these guys, right? And we've killed them all. Go ahead and slide these forward. Slide these forward. I mean, we got a lot of cards here. We got lots of cards here. Lots of people to fight. right? And then of course, just like the regular creature deck, you'd go ahead and put the Horde cards down. Well, these two would be flipped over, right? We know this. Come on, Steven, we know this, right? So you can lose the game if you run out of your abilities. They're all spent. The other thing that has you lose the game is if you have to summon an unhallowed. Remember those summoning cards, and there's no unhallowed here. So let's say a summoning card comes up. Let's go ahead and flip through these. Is there one? Nah, I don't want to flip them all and confuse you guys. But if a summoning card comes up and you have no unhallowed to pick up, game's lost. So the game loses if when you're on watch, you run out of, you have no abilities that you can exhaust. So even before the final round, if you run out of abilities, it's over. At any point, if the people on watch, even if it's 3 or 4, if they run out of abilities, you lose the game. If this unhallowed deck, if you have to draw from it, right, and there's no cards to draw from the unhallowed deck, game is lost, right? You win the game by having at least one ability, and all the monsters, all the creatures are gone. You've made it through the final watch, right? So you go through everything, you've made it through your 8 rounds, and you've gone through the final watch, beat the Horde and everything. And that's how you win the game, right? Is having one of these left. You lose it if you have none left, or if this goes empty. Now, that is everything you need to know to sit down and start playing this game. Hopefully this was sweet and understandable, short and sweet, and we'll see, and understandable. That's basically how you play Set a Watch Swords of Coin by Stone Manor. Stone Manor Games. I'll get used to these names. So Stone Manor Games, Set a Watch, Swords of Coin. That's how you play. It's how you set up and how you play. This is also how you can set up for the original Set a Watch, also by Stone Manor Games, minus the marketplace. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. I hope this made it easy to understand the game. I know the book can get a little difficult, so hopefully this helped out. I'm Steven with Cardboard Coalition. See you later, everybody. Bye.